44.4 and 52.1 seconds respectively. Kenya 1 boys apostrophe 4x 410 relay after returning 318.1 as Uganda settled for the seconds for the time of 3.21.4.
Vision impairment, commonly known as blindness, is one of the disabilities that affects a vast majority of the population globally.
People with visual impairments actually led in terms of establishment of specialized learning institutions through the establishment of Thika, a school for the blind, which is still in existence to date. At that time, because we are talking of the period immediately after the Second World War, soldiers who are returning from the war and had acquired disability were put up for rehabilitation in institutions such as Thika, a school for the blind. At that point, it was mainly accepted that Braille was the medium of communication and for writing and reading for people with visual disabilities. There was the usage of slates and stylus, which is what it's actually still in use today, before upgrading to the use of the classical Braille. The classical Braille is a much more formalized Braille writer and has been in use across the world in several countries.
About 0.49% of the global population are blind, with the number growing from those who have vision impairments. According to the World Health Organization, 28 million people worldwide have severe vision impairments, with 750,000 being Kenyans. The data also indicates that out of the 39 million people living with blindness in the world, 224,000 are Kenyans, with 80% of blindness in the country being due to causes that can be cured or prevented.
We really believe that there can be no inclusion without access to quality education. Today, Kenya, Africa, and the world at large is moving at a very fast pace. The digital technology and artificial intelligence is already ruling our lives. We cannot provide old technology that is 200 years old to the youth of Africa.
You can imagine what goes to the life of a young child in a kindergarten who is like 4 or 5 or 7 years old, walking in the school compound with this device. You still need the braille paper which you need to write on the machine, and then after you have written for a number of lines, it fills up, and then from there you'll be required now to reload again, and then at the end of the day you will have a big bulk of information. The only thing that you realize is that we don't have a QWERTY keyboard with us here. We only have what we call as a braille cell. A braille cell contains 6 dots, which is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. With the 6 cells, I'm able to write my A to Z and 0 to 9 in all the languages that exist in the planet, and then you are able to come up with a combination of dots which will give you a cell, and that's what happens. So if, for instance, I would like to do a write-up here, I'll just place A, B, C, D, E. That's when you are using the braille. When I'm using the Orbit reader, I'm just able to do the same. You can see in an inclusive setup, I won't make noise to my colleagues or to my students in the classroom. I will never get to a point whereby I'll be able to fill the orbit reader with information. So immediately when it gets to the end of the line, like for instance, if I'm using the brailler, you have heard the bell. It means it have gotten to the end of the line. So I need to place the line spacer, then reverse my carriage so that I can go to the next sentence. But when it comes to the orbit reader, the moment I get to the end, to the last cell, which is the 20th cell, it automatically gives me a new line. So it makes it easy. And then after that, if I make a mistake here when I'm doing my typing, I can only remove the paper, throw it away, and repeat the process again. But if I'm using my orbit reader, if I make my mistake, I'll be able to erase, I correct my mistake, and then write the right thing.
My name is Ezekiel John Musau from Thika Primary School for the Visually Impaired, a teacher. We have interacted with the various types of gadgets as far as learning is concerned: the orbit reader, the braille machines, the Victor reader, and the Daisy reader. The braille machine is a gadget which is used by a learner or a person who is visually impaired to do his work.
Whereas the classical braille machine was very effective in the recent past, it has several challenges which include too much noise and expensive cost of papers.
When it has broken down, repairing it takes time. Spare parts are quite expensive, and also the machine itself is very expensive.
Global initiatives identified that the cost associated with some of these devices was rather prohibitive, and different organizations came together. Organizations like the Royal National Institute for the Blind, the Parkin School for the Blind, Sightsavers, and applied their thoughts into producing a low-cost, high-tech device. And that's how the orbit reader was born.
The orbit reader has been good for us since they brought them for us. We have been enjoying with them. Yes, and they have taught us a lot since grade 3 till now.
When a learner at any age, whether it's a young one in primary school or in high school or university, the smile they have on their face when they hold the orbit reader and know that they can use it, to me, is the biggest gratification I can have. Is I know that now this child is going to be able to do what it's capable of doing.
Orbit is better because sometimes there are no braille papers. Yes, and orbit, you can use one SD card even several days, but braille paper you use once. After using, you can't use it again.
It is for this reason that even though we supported the learners for many years, for 10 years, using the old Perkins braille machines, we decided that that is not the solution for the future. Our learners need to be digitally aware and have the digital skills and the literacy skills that will allow them to access quality education, higher education that will lead to well-paying employment and their ability to live lives with dignity and independence.
We still have the classical braille in use in this country, and many students still opt, especially when writing exams, to use the classic braille. So they are being used side by side as we speak in our learning institutions. The introduction of the orbit reader was mainly through partnership with the Kilimanjaro Blind Trust Africa that brought the orbit reader into this country. However, today we have many other organizations that have partnered with the ministry to ensure that the orbit reader is being used in our schools.
The orbit reader is a very good gadget. One advantage and one thing I like the orbit reader is that it's very pocketable. A learner can move with it everywhere he wants to go. he can work either at home or in school and communicate with the teacher for the checkup of the work which the learner has done. Secondly, a learner can write and save his work for future references. It can accommodate so many books in compared to other gadgets we have ever used. And again, the Orbit Reader is very good because you can save a lot of textbooks inside it, and a learner can read and explore throughout his life.
The Orbit Reader brings in a very unique aspect of book reading, whereby a teacher can prepare notes from the comfort of his or her home in Microsoft Office Word, or even prepare something like an SMS, and then after that you can be able to share that information to the Orbit Reader, to the student through the Orbit Reader, either by USB transfer or using the Bluetooth connectivity.
The leading causes of vision impairments and blindness are uncorrected refractive errors and cataracts. The majority of people with vision impairment and blindness are over the age of 50 years. However, vision loss can affect people of all ages. Globally, at least 2.2 billion people have a near or distant vision impairment. In at least 1 billion, or almost half, of these cases, vision impairment could have been prevented or is yet to be addressed. Among children, the causes of vision impairment vary considerably across countries. For example, in low-income countries, congenital cataract is a leading cause, whereas in middle-income countries, it is more likely to be retinopathy or prematurity. In adult population, uncorrected refractive error remains a leading cause of vision impairment in all countries amongst children.
We have been fighting to raise funds, to raise awareness, to bring digital braille literacy and skills through the use of digital assistive devices, let's say braille assistive devices for the visually impaired learners who are in primary school, secondary school, and in higher education, that is universities, TVET institutions, and teacher training colleges. Any institution that provides access to education for a visually impaired learner are the ones that we try to serve.
With enjoyment of economies of scale, other devices have had their prices also drop. And so today, in this space of people with visual disabilities, we have lots and lots of devices that help such people access material or be able to write. On top of applications such as screen readers that people who are blind are able to use on their laptops, on their smartphones, and other devices, because they have voice output, and somebody who is blind can listen and get to know how to navigate or operate some of these devices.
We all know that a visually impaired person or a blind person cannot be able to talk with a hearing impaired person who we refer as deaf. But through the device that we call the Orbit Reader, you can bridge the gap, and the deaf and the blind can be able to communicate seamlessly using this assistive technology.
With the advancement in technology comes challenges, but they too can be addressed. The digital assistive device is an important tool for learning, but without the resources needed to educate the students, it becomes a challenge to enjoy the experience. There is great need for various education institutions tasked with developing curriculum to actually consider the blind through mobilization of resources to help them enjoy learning.
I will request that you bring those SD cards with stories which you can read, and those books which you can read from grade 4 to 6, because the lower ones can't help us.
We are not yet at the point where we can authoritatively say that we are going to upgrade to the wholesale use of the orbit reader. Because this device is a recent introduction into the space, learning space, and as a ministry, we need to be sure that indeed it enhances the teaching learning process. And that means that a proper evaluation needs to be done so that we are able to establish that the impact of the usage of this is such that it actually improves learning. But having said that, I have to say that the ministry is very receptive to new ideas and new technologies. And that is why over the last 1 or 2 years, we have also incorporated assistive technology and other devices in our projects with partners so that we are able to check how their uptake is, how they are being used, how the learners feel, and whether the learners indeed feel that their learning is being enhanced through the usage of these devices.
The visually impaired still need your support, and you can be a part of this great transformation by supporting the government and the various organizations that are working around the clock to empower the visually impaired.
Today, the where we are at, after having distributed 2,000 orbit readers, an orbit reader costs $750. We are asking Kenyans and nationals that we need to come together and support even in small ways so that we are able to fill the gap. Every child who cannot see must have a digital assistive braille device that will be their reading and writing material to be able to access education.
We have had a World Bank partnership in the SECI project, and that has brought us some devices of high-tech devices, some assistive technology, some assistive devices. And even as we move ahead, we do know that most of the partnerships that we have in the Ministry of Education, we are able to identify the strengths of different organizations, partners, like Ikitabu, I've already mentioned, Kilimanjaro Blind Trust, and others, so that they are able, in the context of our partnership, they are able to, we're able to work with them in terms of the assistive devices that we have introduced into our schools.
Victor Nyacharo for Carvic TV, Nairobi, Kenya.